Okay, it's 6:30. Nathan, are we online? Any audience? Pardon? Yes? Okay. All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the City Council meeting for the City of Fairway, Kansas. It is Monday, October 9th, 2023, 6:30 p.m. There are two announcements. First one is under the consent agenda, which is number 7, item C. That should read, approve acquisition of 2 Ford Interceptors police cruisers. The chief's memo to us is correct. This should read Ford Interceptors. And Nathan, you had an announcement?
Yeah, when you arrived this evening, at your seat was a red line version and a clean version of ordinance number 1791. This is pertaining to the tree protection ordinance. There was an omission of what we were intending to include in the draft that was posted as a part of the council packet. So you can see here the red line version of the full changes as well as the clean version. I think it was just a matter of removing shrubs, bushes, and all other woody vegetation from the definition of what a street tree was. So that was removed because obviously the city does not maintain those. Otherwise, you've seen everything else that was a part of the packet. It was just that one addition.
Okay. All right, thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a proclamation that I would like to read into the record this evening. It is a proclamation for Indigenous Peoples Day. Whereas the City of Fairway recognizes that the indigenous peoples of the lands that would later become known as the Americas have occupied these lands since time immemorial, and whereas the City of Fairway recognizes that Fairway is built upon the homelands of indigenous peoples, and whereas Fairway, Kansas is home to the Shawnee Indian Mission State Historic Site, which was placed in the National Register for Historic Places in 1968. Whereas the City of Fairway values the many contributions made to this area through indigenous peoples' intellectual, spiritual, and the deep cultural contribution that have enhanced the character of the City of Fairway. And whereas the idea of Indigenous Peoples Day was first proposed in 1977 by a delegation of Native nations to the United Nations. And now, therefore, I, Melanie Hepperly, Mayor of the City of Fairway, Kansas, do hereby proclaim Monday, October 9th, 2023, as Indigenous Peoples Day in the City of Fairway, and urge citizens to reflect upon the culturally diverse struggles of indigenous people on this land. Okay, we'll move on to the monthly reports of the standing committees. Consolidated Fire District Number 2, Chief Chick, welcome.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me back again. Tonight, I'll focus my efforts at reporting on giving you an annual update on our budget and mill levy changes for 2024. So I presented in September to the Johnson County Commissioners for approval for our budget, which we received with a 6-1 vote. And my presentation included a lot of these high points, so I'll try and move through that efficiently for you. First of all, CFD2 continues to interact on mission-critical topics with the board that is appointed by our county commissioners. We try, as I've probably mentioned before, to keep the representation on that board balanced among the cities in Northeast Johnson County, and up until recently, the only city that did not have representation on our board was Mission Woods. Recently, the county commissioner appointed Dr. John Hunkler to our board. from Mission Woods, and so he'll be participating for the next 3 years in board in our board activity. So Jim Donovan had served the board for 12 years for the city of Westwood, and Jen has just completed his service with our board. So about 80% of our budget is employment related, meaning that that's what we utilize to keep people employed who are firefighter and EMS certified. We hire very high quality people, and we have a very high retention rate, and we invest in our people, but we also get a lot out of them in the way of performance. As we move forward, one of the things that the county has encouraged us to do is to continue collaborating and training efforts with other organizations in the county. And last year we had just over 900 hours of collaborative training with other fire organizations. This year we posted over 1,300 hours of training with other fire organizations. The reason that's important is that when we have a major incident in the district, we don't pay attention to what it says on the door of the fire truck. The closest units, the people that are going to be able to get there the fastest, are who gets dispatched to your home. And so those collaborative trainings where we're working with people that may not be within our organization are important because it sets the tone for the first few minutes, and the first few minutes of an incident like that is what determines the success in the long term. So we train with Leawood routinely. We train with Overland Park routinely. We train with Shawnee. We train with a number of other departments that have specialty items that they serve us with, and then we have specialty items that we serve them with. And so for the county, we are the specialists in structural collapse and trench. And our partners at Olathe Fire Department do the same, and we respond in tandem anywhere in the county if there's a structural collapse or if there's a trench cave-in, utility, something like that. We respond to those calls with Olathe, and we mitigate that issue. Likewise, we don't have a water rescue team, or we don't have a hazardous materials team. We have other organizations that serve us in those specialty capacities. And so those collaboration efforts save the taxpayers money because there's only a couple of hazardous materials teams in the county that are serving the community versus 8 or 9. And so it's money well spent to have people specialized in those areas. So those collaboration efforts continue, and we're actually working in 2024 to progress a little bit more with some ideas about how we can make sure that we don't duplicate equipment and other costs that we're going to be using on the same scene. So those are some things that we're looking at in 2024, is just being a little bit more cognizant of what we need, and maybe that not both of us, or there's usually 2 departments that serve those specialties or more, depending on what those specialties are. And we just don't think that it's necessary for everybody to have a full complement of those items that it takes to respond. So we'll work toward making sure that we right size that to allow for better financial decisions. Our ALS program, Advanced Life Support, started that a little over 3 years ago. We've met that goal in 3 years. It was a 5-year maturity. And what that means is that now, in about 5 minutes, we can have a paramedic on your doorstep ready to serve your family in a time of need. And we're pretty happy with that. We say 5 minutes because we may have a little travel time from another station if we're out, but what we're seeing right now is about 4 minutes and 3 seconds is our average response time for a paramedic to the door of a resident. So we're pretty happy with that. We feel like that serves the community very well. So our infrastructure is aging. We've got a new station down next to Prairie Village City Hall that is serving us very well. That will serve us for many years to come because it was built brick and mortar. Our station at 63rd and Mission Road has some challenges. We're going to spend some time and effort in making some updates to that facility and expanding on that facility. We don't have enough bunk rooms, and what we found was when we were under the limitations of the pandemic, it was hard to keep people isolated and allow for sleeping space that didn't have people in common areas. And so we're going to make some updates to our facilities to create a little bit more resilience to a pandemic or those types of problems, and just kind of harden our service a little bit better. We're pretty proud of the fact that we pioneered a firefighter intern program this last year. One of the challenges that we had was we saw a shrinking candidate pool of qualified applicants. We look for a certain level of professional in fire and EMS in order to come to work for the district. And what we also identified was that when we look for that level of a person, getting anybody, any kind of diversity is a challenge because everybody's searching for those kind of things. And so, to be honest, we built this program knowing that we would get caught up to eventually, and we started cherry picking the education programs before people were certified, and we have done very, very well at that. We have hired 2 full-time firefighters through our intern program over the last year, and we're in the process of helping a 3rd complete their certifications, and they'll be on track to become a full-time firefighter EMT by May of 2024. So very pleased with that. As I anticipated, other people are catching wind of what we've done there, so they're trying to mimic our intern program. So, but I always like to be the first to do something like that. So, some performance metrics that probably will tell you the story. Again, I'm proud to say that this year we received, for many, many years in a row, the highest possible rating awarded for our annual audit. We had no recommendations come out of that audit, and we're proud of the way that we manage our taxpayers' money. Our employee turnover is extremely low. We have about 1.38% turnover right now. That's unheard of in this job market, and that's largely due to the people that work at the district and the culture that we've developed of being a family and serving the community with pride. And so our people are happy and they don't leave us, and I'm extremely proud to be able to tell you that, because what that means is that your families get to see experienced people who aren't new all the time, rotating in and out, and so that provides a much higher level of service to the community. Our training hours are exceeding our goals. We did about 12,000 training hours for our firefighters, EMTs, and paramedics last year. And then another big point that is important to the taxpayers is that there's about 50,000 fire departments in North America that are graded by the Insurance Services Organization. The Insurance Services Organization, or ISO, gives these fire departments a grade, and that's how your insurance, your home insurance and your business insurance rates are set. We, out of these 50,000 fire departments that have been graded, are one of the top 411 in North America. And we've received an ISO Class 1, which is the best possible rating you can receive. And that means that our taxpayers enjoy the lowest possible insurance costs because of those ratings. So we're proud of that. And then finally, I'm going to get to the nuts and bolts of it, and that's what everybody's concerned about, what they pay in taxes. And so for the 4th year in a row, CFD2 is going to lower our mill. Over the last 4 years, we have dropped our mill by 1.745. I want to remind you of a couple of things. First of all, we don't receive any public safety sales tax, which most of the city fire departments do. The fire districts were left out of that when the legislation was done, and so we don't receive any of that public safety sales tax, and it's a big difference. It makes a significant difference in budgets. Number 2, I've talked to the county commission over the years about tax increment financing and development related to TIFs, and I always mention that the creativity and the collaboration of Fairway is much different than what we've seen in the past. So thank you all for your hard work on the projects that you've put together. And we use that as a model for going forward into the future because it's important. The backside of that is that many for-profit businesses that receive a TIF for development in cities in Northeast Johnson County will generate sales tax. And of course, we don't get any sales tax either. So we truly operate off of the mill levy. And so when I tell you that we're able to control the mill levy and be responsible with the taxpayers' dollars, that means a lot to us. And so over the last 5 years, what I'll leave you with is 2 other statistics. Number 1 is that I asked the county commissioner to have some reports done by the county for us, and she provided those. And what it shows is that the district as a whole has seen about 37.57% increase in property value over the last 5 years. Our revenues for the fire district have only increased 15.4%. And so what that means is that better than half of that money that we could have collected in taxes went back to the taxpayer, and that's the way it should be. When we don't need it for operations and we don't need it for staffing, then the taxpayer should be able to pay other bills with that. So This year, we had about $660,000 in reserve related to the dark store theory, which you all are probably very familiar with. Obviously, that's been resolved, and the county feels comfortable that they've come to resolution on all the outstanding cases. And so we put that money back into the budget, and that helped us lower the mill levy because we're able to give that money back to the taxpayers. So last thing I'd point out is in that report that the county commissioner provided me, Commissioner Fast gave me that report and was amazed when she looked at the numbers because the 5-year history shows that CFD2, out of all the subdivisions, when you look at parks and you look at library and you look at all the other taxing subdivisions under the tax bill, nobody has dropped their mill levy proportionally more and nobody's increased the taxes less than what CFD2 has proportionally. So I feel like we've done a good job of managing the money of the taxpayers, and I'm proud to report that, again, though we will collect more tax than we did last year, and being honest, we have been able to lower our mill levy consistently over the last 4 years, and we'll continue to try and be responsible. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Chief, may I be the first to say thank you for managing your budget in such an efficient and skillful way, and that the services have, and the quality of services have increased, and you're doing that with reducing a mill levy. That's outstanding. So thank you.
Thank you.
Not only as the mayor, but I'm a taxpayer too.
That's right.
Any questions for the chief? Jenna?
Yeah, first, just thank you to your team for coming out for Touch a Truck.
Oh, yeah.
My son had a good time, and thank you to the chief also for your guys coming out too. Second, just a question with our world of COVID, which I hate to say that. Like, we had all this concern about PPE. Do you guys have enough PPE moving forward and a game plan? Should we find ourselves in a situation like that again?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for asking. A couple of things. I don't think anybody, very few organizations, let me put it that way, very few organizations were truly prepared for a pandemic in 2020 when it comes to PPE. Fortunately, the state of Kansas had a cache and a stockpile of some PPE that we were able to access. But what that has done is taught us that when we move into the future, we need to be prepared for that. So yes, we build a stockpile of PPE. We keep a level of stock on hand in order to be able to serve for a much longer period of time. And what we're doing is we're rotating that stock with new stock so that we keep it fresh and that it doesn't go bad. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time tonight.
Till the next time. All right, Admin and Finance, Nathan?
The Administration and Finance Committee did not meet in September, so I will let the report stand as submitted. You can see on the finance report, sales tax is coming in strong. The one thing that I'll just point out in the packet was we had the shredding event this past Saturday. I'm sorry, on the 30th of September. And you can see in the packet that over 25,000 pounds of paper was recycled and resulted in saving 214 trees, along with almost 8,500 pounds of computer electronics were also recycled and kept out of the landfill. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Nathan? Okay, thank you. Police, Chief?
Thank you. I'll just give a quick overview of my report, just in reference to some of the instances that we had over in September. Again, more felony controlled substance arrest. We encountered a vehicle with a large amount of stolen property in it. We recovered firearms again last month. Also, there was an incident where there was a pursuit from an outside agency that ended on Roe, and suspects fled. We apprehended one of the suspects in our city. Officer Johnson was a part of that. He's in the council room today. And then last month I also spoke at the Board of County Commissioners meeting in reference to the co-responder program. Received a thank you note from the Board of County Commissioners in reference to that and about Fairway's participation and how we've been a leader with our co-responder program. And then in reference to our recovery, all of our officers have returned to work, which is very, very good. The community support continues to pour in. We get cards, letters, items sent to us every day. There's been multiple events over the past month from outside of Fairway. The Kansas Police Officers Association did a motorcycle ride across Kansas where the benefits of that ride went to the Oswald family. And then last Friday, there was a golf tournament. It's the LEO Open. All the proceeds from the golf tournament, which was in fact full and sold out within 48 hours, go to the Oswald family. We attended both events, and I can tell you that the LEO Open they're still totaling everything up in reference to that, but upwards of $20,000 that will be going to the family. And again, all the support from the community with T-shirt sales and just the continued support that we see just with people coming up to us and the Hen House, their project that they have in reference to us that you've seen on the news that Lieutenant Bayless addressed with the media, all of that continues to be very, very good for the department, and I'd like to thank everyone for that. I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief? Okay, great. Thank you. Public Works. Bill?
Thank you, Mayor. I will also let my report stand as submitted, and happy to answer any questions. A couple things I would like to highlight. Our CIP program, we are now formulating our punch list for items that we're not taking care of. All the paving is done and all the concrete work is done. The only outstanding thing left to do is install the RRFB at the Shawnee Indian Mission. It came in, I believe, the day after the last council meeting. However, the brackets that hold on the solar panels on top did not. They were on national back order, but they're supposed to arrive this week, and that is the number one thing on the contractor's to-do list. Other than that, I would also like to point out that Public Works did have 2 vehicles there and Touch a Truck as well. We had our Bobcat, which always seems to be very popular with the kids, and we had a snowplow truck this year. Our sweeper was not in because it is currently being serviced by Key Equipment. There's a noise coming from the pump, so we want to make sure that's in good working condition as it's about to hit its busy season. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Bill? Jenna?
Bill, I should thank you too for bringing items. We also went in the Bobcat, and by we, I don't mean me, my son. Quick question for you. I know we had talked about, we had looked at the streetlight assessment and talked about a proposal for kind of how to break that down. Is that on the to-do list, and when can we expect an update on that?
Yes, City Administrator Nogelmeyer and I met with Black and McDonald about working with us on that. I actually have a list to reach back out to her. It's not as simple as we thought it was going to be initially, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan, there's a lot of circuitry that goes in to make sure you can't just add lights into it. You have to make sure that you have enough power running to that line. So it's not as simple as just adding lights to where we would like them. So, but she has offered to put some pen to paper and give us an idea of what that would take. But we have not heard back from her yet.
Thank you.
Anyone else? David?
Bill, just one fun issue for the street sweeper. Do you anticipate it starting to get out, or is it already out on the leaves that are starting to come down?
No, I just mentioned it's in being serviced right now. The hydraulic pump is making a noise, and we want to get that taken care of before we start it out on its rounds.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just wonder if you've had a projected timeline on when that might be wrapped up.
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
The unfortunate thing is we purchased a sweeper, and the vendor that sold it to us went out of business 2 years later. So the closest one, I believe, is in Ohio somewhere. So we are working with Key, and that is not their, we're taking a Chevy to a Ford dealership, and they're working on it now, and we do not have a timeline, but I'm hoping within the next week or so.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, thank you, Bill. Nathan, is Bryce on?
Bryce is at a conference, so he's not here with us tonight. I can try to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, any questions on Parks and Rec? They had a great season. His report was very thorough. If you'll pass along to him our thanks and his staff, and to his staff. Okay, next is the monthly reports of the special committees. Tree Board.
No report.
Okay. We'll now open public comment for the consent agenda items only. I will read those into the record. They are A, approve the minutes of the previous regular city council meeting, approve claims and appropriations, ordinance number 1789, September 2023. C, approve acquisition of 2 Ford Interceptors police cruisers. Is there any public comment on any of those 3 items? Anyone online? No? Okay. These items are determined to be routine enough to be acted on in a single motion. However, this does not preclude discussion. If a council member requests, an item may be removed from the consent agenda for further consideration and separate motion. Is there anyone on the council that would like to remove one of those 3 items, one or more of those 3 items for further discussion?
Mayor, I don't want to remove them, but I had 2 clarification questions.
Okay.
Obviously, we need to get more police vehicles, so I'm in support of that. But in terms of the budgeting, do we need to come up with where that's going to, that kind of
No,
the delta that won't be covered by insurance?
that was in the report. Nathan, do you want to address
Well,
that?
it says there's 30,000 that won't be covered by insurance, so that's what I was trying to
Yeah,
understand.
so there's a possibility, and until we see what the costs are with the equipment, there's a possibility that based on previous purchases, we'll be about $30,000 short just because the insurance reimbursements we received aren't going to cover a replacement of a brand new vehicle. But we will just build that into the CIP budget. So we'll take it from there, and it really should not have a significant, it won't have any effect on our ability to do our CIP projects. It'll just affect the cash carry forward going into 2025.
And those cruisers are part of the CIP.
Two
that's
of
where it
them are,
comes
yeah.
from.
Two of them are part of
two
this,
them
are part of the 23. Well, the 23 replacement is already ordered. And then we had 1 vehicle totaled at the end of 22, so that vehicle is also already ordered. The 2 vehicles we're talking about now, we had another vehicle that was totaled in 2023, and then we will have the 2024 budgeted replacement for the part of the CIP. So insurance is covering most of 2 of the vehicles, and then we have already budgeted for the other 2.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Was there a second item, Jenna? You sure? Okay. All right. Anyone else? I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I'd make a motion to approve all 3 items on the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve items A, B, and C on the consent agenda. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Moving on to new business. For public comment on new business items, we will hold that public comment after each individual item. The first item, A, is a presentation and update on the progress at 4210, 4220 Shawnee Mission Parkway by Austin Bradley with EPC. Austin, welcome back. If you'll state your name and address for the record.
Absolutely. Austin Bradley with EPC Real Estate Group.
Is your mic on?
There we go. Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
better.
Austin Bradley with EPC Real Estate Group, 8001 Metcalf, Overland Park, Kansas, 66204. Good to see you all again. Thanks for the opportunity to provide an update. I'm sure we all drive by the site often over the last 12 months. We made a lot of progress, and you really see the site change here going forward. So needless to say, the buildings have been demolished. That was an extensive effort, if you recall, in sync with the sustainability requirements. We spent some extra time to take the garage, crush the garage. So you're seeing these piles of gravel out there on site. We're actually using that as backfill and base for a lot of our slabs, so that took a little bit longer to do, but at the end of the day, I think it was the right thing to do. Really, over the last 6 to 8 months in particular, we've been focused on the garage pad. We've encountered an immense amount of rock, unfortunately, but fortunately, we're beyond that right now. We have a project down the street at 48th and Row, which we were fortunate to take a lot of our dirt that we're not using in Fairway, move it over to that Roland Park site, which is a great win-win for both projects. So if you're seeing any traffic going that way, that's why. Last week, we started pouring concrete, which is a great milestone for us. So we're focused on footings and foundations right now. The garage pad is set. We brought in LVC, which is your structural fill below your slab. And we'll start setting vertical forms probably next week, could be 2 weeks out. So we'll start going vertical here this month, which would be exciting. On track, per our milestones within the development agreement. I'm not sure there's much more to share outside of that, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have related to progress.
Council, any questions? All right.
Based,
Oh, David?
based on there's always seems like there's something under the ground that you don't anticipate. In the big picture, do you still feel like you're on the timeline for completion as projected?
We are, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else before I move on? Okay. Public comment? Anyone in the audience or online who would like to make comments or ask questions of Austin?
We've lost our online audience.
We have?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Anyone in the audience here? All right. Thank you, Austin. Who? Oh, I'm sorry, you're right behind the podium, so I can't see you. If you'll please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Bill Ross. I live at 5621 Aberdeen Road, and I wondered, among other things, what's the estimated completion date?
May of 25.
May of 25. And on that same subject, as I remember, going back to the beginning of this, the demographic for the project was going to be high-end units. Is that correct? High average rents, maybe $4,000 a month, something that high.
Some units maybe, but the majority would be less than that.
How have you changed the projected? Have you changed, and to what level? What's your target now? Because I gathered it had come down.
No, Bill. There's
Okay.
been no change in the agreement.
Not in the, well, the estimates as to what you'd be able to rent for. That's what I'm after.
Nathan, are you aware of any changes? Austin? No. Have there been any changes?
So you'll have some starting as high as 4,000 or 4,500 a month.
You'll need to ask Austin.
Some as high as 4,000 a month.
I'm not sure they go that high, to be honest with you. I mean, they'll start less than.
What's the low end then?
They'll start less than 2,000 a month, and then they can go up to maybe 4.
All right.
But that'll be something we continue to massage as we finish the project.
Okay. All right. That's all.
Probably, now, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
But I would think it would depend on the market in May of 2025. Is that correct?
And that's exactly why we'll continue to massage it throughout the construction.
Yeah.
project.
Okay.
And that was
But it's intended to be high-end. Yes.
That's the goal, and
Yes.
there seemed to have been some thought that maybe that the average rent had come down a lot due to
No.
whatever reason.
That's a rumor.
Okay. All right. Well, Kevin, thank you very much.
That's not true. Thank you for asking, Bill. Anyone else? Bill's the only one that's right out of my sight. He's sitting behind the podium, so I don't see any other hands, though. Okay. All right. We'll move on to item B. Consider ordinance 1790, an ordinance authorizing the city of Fairway, Kansas to issue taxable industrial revenue bonds. Fairway AA LLC Project Series 2023 in a principal amount not to exceed $27 million for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of acquiring, purchasing, constructing, installing, furnishing, and equipping equipping a commercial facility, including land, building, structures, improvements, fixtures, machinery, and equipment, authorizing the issuer to enter into certain documents and actions in connection with the issuance of said bonds. Sales tax exemption only. Kevin, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. I'm Kevin Wimpy with Gilmore and Bell, Bond Counsel to the city, 4618 West 62nd Terrace. So also, thank you for the Touch a Truck event. Thank you for the new street. It's great to be here and see you all, and thank you in person. It's been a year or so since we've really discussed the substance of this, I think, or at least since I've been here. So obviously tonight you have an ordinance authorizing the issuance of industrial revenue bonds. If you'll tolerate just a minute, I'll give a quick refresher on what are IRBs and what are we doing here tonight, and then move on to your action item tonight. So to refresh, IRBs, as contemplated here and as used for 99.5% of the projects in Kansas, are not a true financing tool. Instead, they're a vehicle for granting incentives. And the two incentives available using IRBs are property tax abatement for a maximum term of 10 years, which is not contemplated here tonight in this project. The second incentive that is sales tax exemption on construction materials and furniture, fixtures, and equipment for the project. So again, not a true financing mechanism. Usually when people think of bonds, they think we're borrowing money and using those proceeds to go construct a project. In this case, what's contemplated is a developer purchase bond, meaning they're going to buy their bond and privately finance construction costs. So the project will be traditionally financed using the developer's money, but by use of the IRBs, they'll forego paying sales tax on those materials I mentioned a minute ago. So for tonight's action, what's anticipated here, this is on a typical timeline for a similar project where the City Council considered a resolution of intent and approved a resolution of intent to issue IRBs in 2022, and also approved the development agreement that had the full package of financing tools for this project. And so as is typical, again, there's usually a lag between those things are approved up front, and then as the developer approaches getting into its construction, has all its numbers figured out, reapproaching the City Council to consider an ordinance authorizing the issuance of the bonds and execution of all the related documents. And the reason for that is they just want, I don't want to speak for Hostem, but usually want to get a better handle on their construction figures and make sure they're properly sizing their bond for the requested incentive. So yeah, to wrap up, tonight's the ordinance required by statute to issue the bonds, and with your approval, we proceed with execution of all the documents and compiling all those items, and proceed with closing a couple of weeks from now. I'd be happy to try to field any questions you guys might have.
Just to clarify, I don't want to make this statement. I would rather ask the question and have you make the statement. It's my understanding that this in no way affects Fairway financially.
Correct. So these developer purchase bonds, which again is the overwhelming majority of these types of IRB issuances, are purchased by the developer for the sole purpose of the incentives. There's no repayment risk for the city, and the city's credit's also not at risk with issuance of these bonds. That's correct.
Thank you. That's a complete answer. Thank you.
The only effect to the city of Fairway would be we are then not receiving sales tax on these items that are purchased.
Correct.
Yes.
Few questions.
Thank you, Dan. Yes, Jenna?
Yeah, so just so I understand, we already did include this as part of the agreement, and this, so, I mean, we have to do that to comply with our obligations under the development agreement
Yes.
today?
Correct. Tonight's action was contemplated in the approvals from last year. Correct.
This was part of the original agreement.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
And then the amount in the agreement, the $27 million, is that the sales tax amount?
No, good question, council member. So bonds for sales tax exemption are typically sized to cover the amount of costs that would be subject to sales tax, but for the IRBs. And so you probably are all aware, for new construction in Kansas, sales tax is waived under separate statute for labor costs. And so my guess is if we had a line item budget, and you guys are probably nodding behind me, labor is excluded from their
costs under the IRB, and the $27 million is meant to cover their hard construction costs and furniture, fixtures, and equipment.
Thank you.
David?
I just had one with and I can't remember if we get interest on the bonds or not, if interest is payable on the bonds, and interest rates are a lot higher now than when we did the development agreement. Does that have any impact on the IRBs or Fairway?
It doesn't. These bonds aren't publicly offered. There's no third-party purchaser of the bonds demanding an interest rate. Again, the developer's purchasing its own bond, so we simply assign a nominal interest rate to the bonds that the developer is carrying the cost of.
I didn't remember a big interest component, but rates are a lot higher now than they were.
Any other questions from council for Kevin? All right, don't sit down yet. I'll open it for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that has questions of Kevin or any other questions concerning Ordinance 1790? No raised hands? Okay. All right, Kevin, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there any further discussion among council members? I'll entertain a motion then.
Mayor, I move we approve item B on the new business agenda, which is ordinance number 1790, authorizing the City of Fairway to issue taxable industrial revenue bonds, Fairway AA LLC project, Series 2023, in a principal amount not to exceed $27 million for the purpose of providing funds to pay for the cost of acquiring, purchasing, constructing, installing, furnishing, and equipping a commercial facility, including land, buildings, structures, improvements, fixtures, machinery, and equipment, and authorizing the issuer to enter into certain documents and actions in connection with the issuance of said bonds for sales tax exemption only. And I assume that includes authorizing the mayor and to execute all applicable documents.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve ordinance number 1790. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. All right, item C, consider ordinance number 1791, an ordinance amending the Fairway City Code pertaining to public tree protection, amending and repealing Chapter 11, Article 4 of the Fairway City Code. Nathan?
Mary, just as a reminder, the revised ordinances were placed on the dais ahead of the meeting this evening. So these are two ordinances that came out of discussion initially from an Administration and Finance Committee meeting, and then it was remanded back to the Tree Board. So the Tree Board had their discussion, then they turned around with these recommended changes to present to the City Council this evening. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I know you guys have all seen this, and we've had multiple discussions on this, so if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, we can proceed.
David?
Yeah, sorry, I'm full of questions tonight. I'm on the tree board, but I can never remember, where do we better define a street tree? I know Bill always says it's 25 feet from the center line of the road. Is that actually defined somewhere? I mean, this adds clarification. It's to the center of the tree at breast height, because we've seen in the recent storm that a lot of residents have a misconception or a misunderstanding of, is that tree in my yard a street tree or not a street tree?
Right.
And I'm just trying to remember where we kind of lay out that broader definition, that it starts from the center line and goes out X feet.
Yep, so that's on the 1791, that if you look under section 11-19 under definitions, it says street trees lying between the front lines of, on either side of all streets, avenues, or ways within the city measured to the center of the right-of-way. So it's from the center of the street.
Well, it says it measures where it goes to, but it doesn't say it. That's why I was just saying, when I read that, well, how do I figure out where those, other than getting on a map somewhere?
So generally, aside, cul-de-sacs aside, it is 25 feet from the center line of the street. On all of the city streets, obviously, that does not include Shawnee Mission Parkway. So I think once we have further clarification on where the survey lines are for the cul-de-sacs, we'll need to come through and update this again.
Okay. That's it. And I don't know that we need to defer anything or anything, but I just think the easier it is for a resident to go somewhere, and maybe, I can't remember if we have it well-defined on the website. I didn't have time to look today before the meeting.
Anytime anybody calls City Hall, Rick or Chris are quick to go out and help measure to determine if it's a right-of-way tree.
I know we're real responsive, but
Yeah.
for the people that like to click and search for themselves, if we can
Right.
have a button there somewhere, that'd be
Right.
great. Thank you.
That it, David? Okay, anyone else?
Yeah.
Dan?
So I think there's been some discussion since, I think it was last meeting, maybe it was 2 meetings ago. There's now a list of trees that are exempted or have been exempted on the website. I realize this is going to take some work, and I don't expect it to be done next week, but what I'd like to see is a complete list of street trees on every address for the entire city on the website.
That's going to require some software.
Yep.
So that would be a CIP budget. I know the Public Works Department has requested the GIS software before as a part of previous budget presentations. It's never gotten out of committee. So that'd really be the only way to do that. And then there would be a way to have more of an interactive map with that. But without the GIS software, we don't have the resources to do that. So I can talk to Director Stogsdill and have that included as a part of the 2025 budget request. But that would be beyond, without moving to somewhere where they can literally take a device and ping a tree. I don't see that we have the resources to be able to map every tree in the city of Fairway.
On that topic, I asked Bill that same question too, if we can get a bigger list. I guess the question is, right now, if we are maintaining those trees, how do we know? We must have some internal list to decide what to maintain.
So it's all based on what the contract is with the arborist. And the contract states that they have to maintain all trees within the right-of-way as defined by that 25 feet from the center line of the road. So if they have skipped a tree because they didn't think it was part of it, or if, as we have found, they have been trimming some trees because they thought they were in right-of-way but they weren't, there's going to be some push and pull with the actual trees that get done. If we go through the process and GIS all of the trees, then it becomes simply a matter of handing that map over to the contractor. But as of today, a map like that doesn't exist.
I guess, but the contractors must have some kind of list that they use when they're doing the work that we pay them to do.
So they're required to, the onus is on them to identify if the tree is in the right-of-way or not. So if they have a question about whether or not a tree is within the 25 feet from the center line, it is the contractor's responsibility to measure that tree and then determine if it needs to be trimmed. If they have a question about a tree, then they would call Public Works out to give them an official word.
I just wonder if we could get the information from them as to what trees they've been trimming, and that's kind of our starting point.
I mean, we can ask. I doubt they're going to have a list of trees. I mean, they're going to look at it. They're going to go down a street and say, is this within 12 feet of the curb or 25 feet of the center line? And if it is, they trim it. If it's not, they don't.
I just imagine for efficiency, I don't know, I'm not a contractor, but they would in advance anticipate, and they're doing this year after year, which trees are right of way. And I just think we might have some of this information already.
I can ask. I know Public Works does not have it. So if we can see if the contractor has it, but they've got multiple crews going out to different. They fan out across the city. So I would just need to check with the contractor, or Bill can check with the contractor to see what information they're using to determine whether or not it's a right-of-way tree, if they're using something that is beyond what is identified in the contract.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
And I thought I heard that we had a list at a previous meeting, but it was a written list. So while an interactive map would be great, I really think somebody could go down each street and knock out a street at a time and mark 5628 Mission has 0 street trees and get you 90% of the way there.
So we do have, as a part of the tree inventory, we have it broken down by ward. What trees are and what types of trees are per ward, but it's not at the street or address level.
Any other questions for Nathan?
I want to kind of second Dan's. I think if there's, at the committee level, if we can, or at the tree board level, I don't know where it would be, to find a way to build up a database, I think that would be helpful for both Public Works and the residents. And I don't know that going out and, I think in Mission Hills, when I walk the dogs, they put little markers on some of their trees, maybe because they're their feature trees or something like that, but you can go put a little, nail a little medallion into a street tree once they've gotten to a certain age that it doesn't hurt the tree. But I think it'd be great long-term if a resident had a question, they could, again, just not only clicking on a definition, they could look on a map of the city and see if their trees are considered to be in or out of the right-of-way.
Right. And the GIS software that I was talking about went beyond just the right-of-way trees. It was a comprehensive. It had the ability to track street signs and all of those other types of things that Public Works, storm boxes, although we have that now with the study. But so I think from my perspective, if we're wanting to go down that road and it's something that the expectation is once it's created, it's maintained, the maintenance on something like that is going to be far easier on software than it is on an Excel spreadsheet or something else.
I think it sounds like it's something to tee up for Bill to put on a future Public Works Committee agenda.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm giving everybody a chance to think. Any other questions? Okay. I'll open it to public comment. Anyone in the audience who would like to discuss this matter or ask questions? Nope, seeing none, I'll close public comment. And I'll ask for a motion on ordinance number 1791.
Do it, David. I move that we consider and approve ordinance 1791, an ordinance amending the Fairway City Code pertaining to public tree protection, amending and repealing Chapter 11, Article 4 of the Fairway City Code.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve ordinance number 1791. All those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. New business item D, consider ordinance number 1792, an ordinance amending the Fairway City Code pertaining to public right-of-way use and excavation, protection of the public, amending and repealing Chapter 9, Article 3, Division 1, Section 9-76 of the Fairway City Code. Nathan, that's you too?
Yeah. So really, Rich, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the only change on this one was under J. And that's it's essentially what we found was in the event of a utility company going in and doing work to the tree, if we believe that they had caused damage or a significant amount of an issue with a right-of-way tree, the only recourse in the code was to have them cut it down and replant a new tree. So what this ordinance revision does is it gives the Public Works Director the discretion. He can require that, but he can also require less depending on the severity of the potential damage to the tree. So we had a situation where we had a utility company, a utility contractor come in and did disturb the area underneath the drip line of the tree, which is permitted for utilities. But as we read the code, it essentially was going to require that they cut down what we thought was otherwise a healthy tree and still had a lot of life left in it. And so we wanted to add this discretion in there for the future so that it's not an automatic, you got to cut it down and plant a new one. It's maybe you pay into the tree fund, but it does not have to come down.
Rich, do you have anything you want to add?
I was just going to confirm, Rich Cook, City Attorney. Nathan, you're correct. The only change is to the subsection J of Section 976.
Yep.
Questions? David? Sure.
I'm trying to visualize what this, so on 63rd Street, a resident has their power lines on 63rd Street, and their trees were just decimated, I assume by Evergy or someone. Is that what this is addressing, or is it addressing the ground?
This would be regarding the root system of the tree.
The what?
The root system. So
The
if
root
Evergy wants to
system.
come through, I know there have been complaints going back longer than I've been with the city of Fairway about Evergy's contractors coming through and butchering trees. If it's within their easements, or if it's, they have the ability to do whatever they want with the trees. So they can come in and essentially, butcher the tree. That authority is provided to them under state statute, so we wouldn't have anything to do with that. Now, if they're trenching through the ground, and I think one of the things in here that was referenced, it might be somewhere else, but essentially, the public works director can say, no, you cannot trench, you have to bore, in order to preserve the root system of the tree. So again, it's just giving the director the flexibility there. But if it's anything to do with actual trimming of the tree, if it's in Evergy's easement, then that's out of we have no say on that.
So for that one area where those trees are clearly in their easement because the lines go right along the street, that's also our right-of-way. We don't have any ability to impact the way they trim and maintain those trees above the ground.
Correct.
Right, and this is just below the ground.
Correct.
Thank you for clarifying.
Any other questions for Nathan? Okay, I'll open it for public comment. Anyone in the audience wish to discuss this matter? Nope. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment, and I ask for a motion concerning ordinance number 1792.
I move to approve ordinance 1792.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that ordinance 1792 be approved. All those in favor, aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. Item E, consider resolution 2023E, a resolution setting a hearing to determine if the structure located at 4013 West 62nd Street, Fairway, Kansas, should be condemned and ordered repaired or demolished pursuant to KSA 17-1750 and Section 108 of the International Property Maintenance Code, 2000 edition, as incorporated by reference with certain changes in Section 6-52 to 6-56 of the Fairway City Code. Jamie, if you'll come forward and please identify yourself and your address, please.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Jamie Baum. I'm the Community Service Officer for the City of Fairway. I suppose my address would be 5252 Belinder.
That's fine.
Yes. If you don't know me, I work over in the PD, but I also do codes. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the structure at 4013 West 62nd Street. On September 27th, about midday, Officer Skemper got a call regarding a feline that was found. That feline was in kind of rough shape, and there was a concern for the 2 canines that lived at that house. Ultimately, Officer Skemper and I went to see those canines in person. Those canines were taken into custody, and the inside of the house was viewed from the porch, and we had significant concerns about the inside of that house. Ultimately, the next day, Officer Skemper and I and Lieutenant Bayless returned to the home and were allowed into the home by the homeowner. And within the home, when you first walk in, there's a living room. In that living room, there's a substantial amount of garbage bags, cardboard boxes, the odor of urine from a feline and canines, as well as visible feces. As you move in further into the home, there's a dining room that is being used as a bedroom right now. And there was a considerable amount of garbage as well as visible dirt and dust on the ceiling fan and on fixtures on the wall. When you turned left, it went into a kitchen which had partially the laminate floor had been removed, showing the bare wood underneath. There was substantial trash and dishes in the kitchen, as well as evidence of rodent infestation from feces. There was also a good amount of dirt and debris in the kitchen. As you moved into the garage, there was a substantial amount of garbage bags, both in and out of trash cans, broken furniture, 4 lawnmowers, both pedestrian doors to the garage to the backyard, and from the house to the garage do not latch, and neither does the front door. So nothing is weather tight right now. In the backyard, there was a lot of overgrowth. There is not really any grass in the backyard. It is just all volunteer trees and bushes at this point, which has been abated before by me, I believe twice, and Assistant City Clerk Aldridge also abated the property in reference to the lawn. When you go back inside the house, if you turn right from the dining room, there is a bathroom that has a leaking toilet that has caused mold in the basement underneath. It's been leaking for quite some time. You could audibly hear it leaking when you walked in. There was a large bucket that was mostly full of water. Most surfaces in the bathroom were covered with visible dirt and grime, the smell of urine, in a pile of clothes that were behind the door that made it difficult to enter the bathroom completely. In the main bedroom, Lieutenant Bayless went in there, and it was full of trash, boxes on the bed full of books and other objects. The portion of the bed to lay on was very small. The mattress itself was visibly dirty, and Lieutenant Bayless wasn't able to see much of the ground due to the amount of trash on the ground. Both the city administrator, Lieutenant Bayless, Officer Skimper, and the community development director went into the basement, and in the basement a substantial amount of trash was found, as well as clothing, blankets, and towels that were damp with an unknown substance. It did appear that previously there was a sewage backup in 2 pumps that has now dried, so the flooring of the basement is covered in what could be assumed as feces. The back of the structure of the house itself has completely separated from the foundation wall. So there's a long line where you can see daylight through. The back of the structure itself is no longer sitting on the foundation wall. It is sitting on 2 or a couple beams that were previously put in to support the foundation wall, not to hold the house itself. Additionally, like I said, the toilet is leaking into the basement. That leak is significant enough that it filled up a washing machine, and that washing machine is now full of mold. Black mold was viewed, and like I said, there's a substantial amount of trash as well as cracks all throughout the foundation, both on the flooring and on the walls. So at this point, between the community development director and I and the city administrator, we feel the home cannot inhabit anyone right now safely.
Right, Nathan?
Mayor, if I can just jump in here. We do have photos that we're going to put up on the monitors here shortly. The last time the city went through a condemnation process, it was jarring for me. It was my first time as city administrator. But I do want to just put out a couple of caveats. As one, some of these images are going to be difficult to see. And 2, this is the way the process works for this is Officer Baum, through her title as the code enforcement officer, does have, it is within her authority, which is through the International Residential Code as well as the International Property Maintenance Code that the city adopts. The authority is granted to the code enforcement officer to condemn property. So this is when we discovered the condition of the interior, as Jamie said, we made a decision to go ahead and immediately condemn the house. What happens then is that triggers a lot of different state statutes. And so the first one is that the city council then has to essentially hold a public hearing to affirm the decision or to not affirm the decision of the community service officer or our code enforcement officer on the condition of the home. So that is something that after we get through the photos, we will then move on to the resolution that was a part of the packet, where the council can decide if they want to set a hearing for the condemnation. The council is not condemning anything tonight. It is just to set the hearing. And we can talk about that as soon as we get through the photos. But are there any questions before we get to these? Okay. And Jamie did a good job of describing what we witnessed as we went in. So some of these we can go through fairly quickly. And just to kind of point out the code violations here, obviously this is the back of the house. I'm sorry, this is the front of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say the reason I don't normally go out with the officers on their calls, but the reason I attended with Officer Skimper, first off, I want to commend him on his investigation into this, because it could have been easily like it's an animal call. But he did a really good job digging into what was happening, and I truly believe saving the lives of multiple entities, so I'm very proud of him. He pointed out, if you scroll down just a little bit, that behind a large shrub there was the fascia was falling in, and that is right by the front door. So I took a few pictures while we were there the first time of the exterior of the house, just some volunteer trees, which I've dealt with this homeowner about before, and a little bit of trash outside the garage. This will show going into the living room. This is a screen grab from a body camera, but you can see that this is within the living room. The ground is difficult to see, mainly trash and boxes at this point. That's another angle. So this is a bed that is covered in trash and piles of clothing. This bed was also visibly dirty. This is the kitchen. To the right there, you will see the rodent feces that was found. More evidence of rodent infestation. That kind of shows some of the visible dirt on the cabinets. Most of the cabinets were like that, as well as the ground. And that is underneath the sink, where part of the wall seems to be crumbling a bit, and it appeared something has previously leaked there. And that's just the countertop space where not a lot is visible at this point. And that's a similar picture. And right here you can see where the linoleum is ripped up from the wood exposing the bare wood underneath. This is the garage. It's mostly full, and like I said, that door in the back cannot latch, and neither can the door into the home. That's mainly the volunteer trees in the back. Like I said, there's not much actual grass. It's volunteer trees and bushes at this point. So that's a pile of clothing behind the door that made it difficult to open. And you can see the bucket next to the toilet paper and the toilet itself, where it was leaking water into. And that is the ceiling in the bathroom, where it appears that they have had a previous leak from the roof. This is the main bedroom that Lieutenant Bayless went into. You can see that there's a small portion where the individual who owns the home sleeps, and she also works in that room from home. And on the other side of the bed is just boxes of stuff, and then the floor really can't be seen that much. So that is actually one of the support beams put up, and the house is shifting so much that it's splintering the wood on that beam. That is a crack in the, well, it's a foundation wall separated from the structure itself and the daylight that is able to get through.
Jamie, if I can just add in here, you'll notice above the window here, you'll see this throughout the basement on the south side, where the basement, as Jamie indicated, the foundation is completely separated from the rest of the structure. So there are, and you'll see, you saw one before, but you will see support beams that were added at some point. Our community development director thinks some time ago, where the foundation wall was starting to collapse in, so they put in the steel beams to hold it in place. Unfortunately, the foundation has continued to shift in, and that has caused those steel beams to shift as well, which is what Jamie talked about with the wood splintering there. But you can see on this photo here, this runs the length of the basement. There is a several-inch gap that exists now, and this is one of those support beams that is supporting the house, which is definitely, it's meant to support the foundation wall, not the structure itself.
And that shows some of the cracking in the foundation, if you can see that kind of zigzag pattern there.
This is on the west wall, where you could also see daylight on a number of different locations. So it's not just the south foundation wall. It is substantial foundation work on what we could see on at least 3 of the walls, if not all 4.
This is from the toilet above. This is the ceiling that the leak is coming through, and it is, I presume, black mold or some type of significant mold, as well as all of the black that is on that wall is also black mold. And this is an example of the amount of garbage that is down there. There's a significant amount of garbage, both in bags and loose. That is the washing machine that is filled with water from the toilet leak above. More of the black mold and more loose trash. And then you can see even more of that crack on the right-hand side there with the daylight. More trash, and that mattress is a damp mattress. And from my understanding, there's a significant amount of feces on the ground. You can kind of see on the right-hand side there, that is where the sewage has backed up at some point and has never been cleaned up. So it's now partially dried there. Same on the left-hand side there, and those are the stairs back upstairs. So those stairs are visibly dirty, both with dirt and trash on them. And then that's more on the right-hand side of the sewage issue and more trash bags on the left-hand side. And that is a better picture of the ceiling from the leak. And it does look like parts of that have either caved in or they've removed completely. And then that is, these next couple pictures are going to be the second bathroom that is downstairs. And I believe it's not in working order from my understanding.
So, again, not making any findings tonight. The only task of the governing body this evening is to pass a resolution which is statutorily required. This resolution then will be published for 2 consecutive weeks in the city's official newspaper, and the hearing to consider condemnation cannot occur until a minimum of 30 days past the second publication. So I know on the packet it was left blank. However, just for our purposes here this evening, the hearing would be set before the December City Council meeting. So it would be set for December 11th at 6 p.m. That's 30 minutes prior to our regularly scheduled City Council meeting. And the hearing would take place here in the council chambers where, because staff have already presented their report, they will be here to answer any questions. But it will also give the homeowner the ability to provide any comments on their behalf that they would like to make. At that point, then the council will need to determine if the council moves forward with condemnation. Then we would move forward with determining when or how the property owners can continue to can work to restore the property, to abate it. The council will be able to set out a timeline for how long that should take. And then what the next steps would be if that abatement doesn't occur. So all during this time, between now and when the hearing occurs, the property owners will have access to the property if they need to go in and retrieve belongings, or if they want to bring in contractors to get quotes for repairs. They could even move forward with the repairs if they so chose. But unless all of the concerns identified in the report are addressed and abated, the hearing will go on the 11th if you all pass the resolution this evening. So it's our understanding that they do have at least one contractor or engineer scheduled to come in the coming days to take a look at it. I will tell you, Basil, our community development director, is an engineer himself, so he would be able to review any reports that would be provided and provide his opinion on those if we receive them. But the next step for this evening, it would be for the council to consider Resolution 2023E.
Any questions for Jamie or Nathan?
How many code violations are we looking at?
It's really hard to tell because we only were looking at surface issues. Obviously, if you look at the report that Jamie drafted, it lists out a number of known code violations. But until we would get into it and see what else is in there, the list isn't going to get shorter.
Right now, like the total that was in the initial letter that was given to the owner is 10, but there's multiple subsections of those that are in violation almost in every room. So
yeah, I just
didn't see them,
or I didn't see them listed out, so I didn't know if we had like a list, if you will. But yeah,
one of the interesting things here, previously on a previous condemnation, our code enforcement officer was also our building official, so it was one person. This is, we have Jamie as our code enforcement officer, and we have Basil as our code official, or as our building official. So the two of them will be working in tandem. The report, though, does capture both the property maintenance code, which would be Jamie, as well as the building code violations, which the structural things, which would be Basil.
Jana?
Yeah. First of all, these images make my can you hear me? Make my heart very sad. These are really hard. A couple of questions.
Is your microphone on? I can't hear you very well.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
That's better.
Yep. A couple of questions. One about the residents and one about kind of like the neighboring properties. For the residents, I mean, they're Fairway residents. Do we know, are they now homeless? Do they have a place to go in the interim, and what support can we provide them? That's the first question.
It's our understanding they do have a place that they're staying at right now. Okay. Before they left that day, that the staff condemned the property, they were put into touch with the co-responders for Johnson County Mental Health. I can tell you on previous instances, we have tried to get them connected with the minor home repair system that, through Johnson County that we participate in. Yeah. Unfortunately, at the time, they exceeded the income threshold that would have qualified them for that service.
Okay. And then second question, what, if any, impact does the structural unsoundness, I don't know the right term, have on the neighboring properties? And is there a safety concern? Obviously, there's concern for people living in that house, but what about kind of right next door?
Well, I would imagine the rodents themselves, I mean, there'd be concern about them going to the neighbor's house. We also can't get a clear picture right now of what, if there's even more violations in the backyard until the backyard is addressed, where we could see more things. But I also did observe a large tree in the backyard that appears to have significant deadwood, and it's very close to the back of the property. So I'd be worried for the property that bumps up behind it on 62nd Terrace, and if a limb were to fall into their yard, for sure.
Okay, so I was, like, the house is not gonna, like, turn off to its side and bump into the next house if we have a tornado or something.
No, what I would say, though, is as a part of the, what will happen, again, assuming we get to the point where you pass this resolution and we have a public hearing, you will consider another resolution at that meeting that will lay out what the next steps would be. And one of those steps can be that before any construction or demolition work would occur, that they would have to abate the property for rodent control, just to minimize the impact. I'm not saying it's going to eliminate the impact on neighbors, but we can attempt to minimize those impacts down the road. And then also, if we do identify that there are, in fact, dangerous limbs on a tree that could have an impact on neighboring property, you can kind of establish the pecking order of what things get done first in terms of abatement. But I don't think I know we have not had the arborist out there to evaluate any trees. No. So that would be the first step that we would need to do to determine if there are limbs that would need to come down. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Dan?
I would not want the property owners or the council, I guess, to be rushed in that meeting. So either, I think we're agreeing now that the city council meeting could potentially start after 6:30, or could we move that meeting start up to 5:30?
So typically how this would work is the public hearing would occur at 6 p.m. If the public hearing is not done by 6:30, then the mayor at 6:30 could open up the city council meeting, but then continue the hearing right at the start of the city council meeting.
You're all right
Yes.
with that? Okay.
Just procedurally, now that we know the date and time, should that, when we do a resolution setting a hearing, set forth the date and time?
Yeah, so the one that the mayor will sign this evening has that date pre-filled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen it.
One more question. In addition to the publication, which I understand that's how we do it, will we figure out a way to also tell them more personally the date of the hearing? Can we do that?
So just like Jamie did with the notice of the condemnation, she scheduled a time to meet with them in person to deliver it. So the same will occur for this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I will open that to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who has questions of Nathan or Jamie? Hearing none, I will close the public comment section. And I would ask for a motion concerning the approval of Resolution 2023E.
Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 2023E, which is a resolution setting a hearing on December 11th, 2023 at 6 p.m. to determine if the structure located at 4013 West 62nd Street in Fairway should be condemned in order to be repaired or demolished pursuant to KSA 12-1750 at SEC and Section 108 of the International Property Maintenance Code 2000 edition, as incorporated by reference with certain changes in Section 6-52 to to 6-56 of the Fairway City Code.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 2023E. All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Passes unanimously. All right, we'll move on to item 9, which is the governing body comment section. During this time, members of the governing body will be given the opportunity to speak about matters related to the city. No formal action will be taken during this time. I have one item that I would like to share with all of you. As you know, in the timeline that I've shared with you about the Shawnee Indian Mission and where we are with that in our relationship with Chief Ben Barnes and the Shawnee tribe. We sent letters, if you'll remember, inviting 63 tribes. There were 22 originally at the mission, but they have splintered to the point where there are now 63 tribes, all 60, I believe it was 63, wasn't it? 62? Okay, 60 plus. They all were invited. I don't know what Nathan expected. I didn't expect a large attendance, but I was disappointed in that we only had 4 tribes that came to the meeting, and that meeting was on September 25th at the mission. It was an informational only meeting. The tribes that attended were the Kaw, the Shawnee, Wyandotte of Kansas, and Prairie Band Potawatomi were the 4 tribes that came. And the meeting went as well as could be expected, in that we shared information with them. They, in turn, shared information with us. There was good dialogue, I would say. However, there was also some, the room was tense at times. We'd been warned about that, I guess I could say, and that tribes don't always get along very well with each other, and that was evident. Nathan, do you have anything that you want to add? The next step is to, in the first quarter of next year, let me tell you this, also attending was the 2 individuals from the State Historical Society. Were there as our partner with the Shawnee Indian Mission, and they also had their presentation. The next step is in the first quarter of next year, we will meet again to start putting together next steps. This was informational only, sharing with them the history of the mission, both from our research records that the historians have about the mission, about our partnership, and how the city fits into that picture. And then the Historical Society talked about the exhibits and their responsibility, and the fact that they are the ones that own the land and the buildings, and how their preservation of that takes place. So informational only, as I said. So in first quarter, I don't know when yet, we will meet and start talking about, okay, how do we bring the tribes together and allow all 22 tribes that were originally at the mission a place to exhibit and present their story. And there are two buildings that are available for their exhibits, and they would work with the Historical Society. The city wouldn't, we operate, but we don't have anything to do with the exhibits. So our goal is to give every tribe that was there an opportunity to exhibit and tell their story. I left that out. That's kind of important for those of you in the audience that may not have heard, haven't lived this for the past 2+ years. So that's our next step. and I hope there'll be more in attendance at that meeting, but we shall see. I will tell you that Ben Barnes was reelected as chief of the tribe, and so he will still be governing that body. Okay, anyone else have anything they'd like to share? Jenna?
Yeah. Goodness. The Go Green Fair was awesome. It was a big success. Can you hear me now?
As long as you lean in, we're good.
The Go Green Fair was a big success, even though the weather was like torrential downpour, but there was a lot of vendors there, a lot of opportunity to learn, to buy stuff, and the mayor has graciously agreed to let us be a host city again next year. So that's great. We are looking for a volunteer to kind of spearhead it from Fairway, a Fairway rep. There's a steering committee, and there's at least one rep from each city, so if you want to do it or you know anyone who wants to do it, it's not a ton of work, but it's a fulfilling job. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Me.
Jason?
Sunday is...
Well, but if you turn it off, Barb can't hear it. The recording secretary can't hear it.
Hey, Barb. Sorry.
Okay.
Even with my booming voice? Okay, I'll just sit back here.
She's not in the room.
Fairway Ward 1 is Sunday is our Fall Fun Festival. We have additional shirts. If those have not purchased a shirt that's going to go to Jonah's family, the proceeds. So anybody who's hasn't bought one or wants to buy one or whatever, stop on by. I think we have probably, at the Fall Fun Festival, 20 to 28, 30, somewhere in that neighborhood-ish, I think was a count. Somewhere in that neighborhood. So anybody who hasn't purchased one, like to purchase one, they'll be for sale at the Fall Fun Festival. And yeah, that's it.
David?
I wanted to echo the earlier comments about our Touch a Truck event. I didn't go to it because our kids are way too old, but in hearing the neighbors talk about it, coming back from it, seeing all the cars parked on the street, I know it's a tremendous success every year. And I think it's a great example about how inside of Fairway our various departments work together, but also with outside agencies to get all that stuff there for the kids. And maybe for some adults too, who probably, you said you didn't climb in there. I want verification of that. But it's just a wonderful event, and I'm glad whoever came up with the idea with it, whenever they came up with it, did, and I hope we can continue it because the kids love it.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll close this section of the agenda, and finally, item 10 is public comment for items not listed on the agenda. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. We appreciate your patience through this meeting.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Melody Shapker, 5919 Catalina. My concern this evening and for the past year has been the VRBOs. I've spoken with you directly. Thank you, Tanya, and thank you, Jamie, for today's issue. So another issue came up with our VRBOs. On my block, between 59th and 60th, 20 homes, I have 3 VRBOs. So 15% of the homes in one block are VRBOs. A year ago, I was out of the country when I got word that there was a party, enough people to block the street of Catalina, not allowing residents to get through, to go to their home. Earlier this summer, the day after our major storm, trees down, power out, we had a film crew move into one of the VRBOs. I was told it was a low-budget film crew, a group of 12 people in a 2-bedroom house. The house eventually, not eventually, within a couple of days, and I have photos, the windows were covered with black plastic, taped to the outside of the windows. This went on for a week. Today, the film crew showed back up, not at the house that they were in earlier this year, but the house next door. Thank you, Tanya and Jamie, again. The police came by, thank you. They did confirm that it was a film crew. Eight cars were parked on the street. Again, Monday, trash day, we know what it's like. I have video of the trash truck having to back up all the way down Catalina because they couldn't get through. A resident on Catalina was having tree work done today. The tree company had to park 3 houses away because they couldn't get to the house that they were performing the work on. They had to haul all of their equipment to the house to do work in the backyard. I'm getting frustrated with these VRBOs. I don't know how many others here are experiencing any of this, but we on Catalina are really frustrated and tired. I know it can't be resolved today. I would like stricter rules with these VRBOs. I know I'm looking at a VRBO in Palm Springs for vacation. The rules that they post on their VRBO rentals, one person even commented, there are so many don'ts. I know that you're just looking for ways to call the police on me if I rent this house. It seems like we have a free-for-all. Nothing, I don't see many limits on our VRBOs. Even just the number of vehicles. I mean, in Palm Springs, 1 vehicle or 2 vehicles. They limit it. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the solution is. But something needs to be done in our little town with our little narrow streets, with our small little homes that are still remaining, that aren't being torn down. And I know people are looking at them, the ones that are reasonable enough to be bought and turned into VRBOs. Just something to consider. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Melody, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Nathan, do you have a comment?
Sure, I can just address some of that. I was not a part of anything that happened today because I was traveling back into town, so I can't speak to that. But just in general terms, I can say that we have probably the most restrictive short-term rental restrictions in all of Johnson County in the city of Fairway. And unfortunately, they have to be registered just like any other rental in the city. And once we have them registered, they have to follow the same process as our long-term rentals. However, when we look at everything you're describing in terms of film crews being there, we have limits on the number of people that can be on the property at any one time. We don't specifically limit the number of vehicles, but it's because we limit the number of occupants that can be there at any time. We are not proactively enforcing the guidelines just because we don't know when the property is rented out. So some of that is going to have to be reactionary in terms of if there's a problem that the residents are experiencing with a short-term rental. Like so many other things around the city, it's incumbent upon the resident to call the police department. And so and I'm sure the chief would echo this, if you have any concerns, not just about Airbnbs or VRBOs, but any public safety concerns, always reach out to the police department. They will, I think you've probably seen they've been pretty responsive to your concerns. But in terms of, I can speak to the previous incident where we had a film crew, and as soon as the city became engaged with that property with the crew that was there, I think it was within 48 hours the crew was gone. So we allowed them to come back in and get their equipment. Nobody was actually spending the night there. They were just coming in there for the day.
Correct.
So once we put them on notice, I believe it was within 48 hours, and they were hauling their equipment out of the property, and it was done. And we addressed it individually with that property owner, because the best tool that we have is to make sure the property owners are enforcing the code on their renters. And to hear what other, I too am an Airbnb user, lots of times there's the list of things that you can't do. Right. So I get that totally. We as the city, though, don't have any control over what gets posted. We just have the control over how we enforce the code. And so with that particular property owner, they were put on notice, as we have done now twice with 2 other short-term rental places here in town, they've been put on notice that if they have another violation, then their short-term rental license will be revoked. So I feel like as a city, we're trying to be as accommodating to the property owner, but also to the neighboring, to the neighbors of that Airbnb as well. So I would just continuously encourage residents to call the police if they have any concerns about that, because until we are made aware of a specific concern, again, for us, we don't have the staff to go out and look to see which Airbnbs are rented at what particular time. So we do rely on if there are concerns about what's going on at the property. As with any other property in the city of Fairway, we would encourage you to call the police and let the police officers step in and see, because I know administration provides the list of the Airbnbs or VRBOs to the police department, so we're communicating back and forth. They've got the list, but that does not necessarily mean when they're out patrolling, they're saying, okay, this house is an Airbnb. Does it look like they have got more than 5 people there? So I would just always encourage you to call, and we can get someone out there.
Does the city have any limit to VRBOs within the city of Fairway, or are we going to consider that for future if?
I don't know that there would be a way for us to limit the number in any particular area. I do know there are some cities that are out there that are considering an outright ban
Yes.
on short-term rentals, but in terms of capping the number of short-term rentals, I don't know that statutorily we'd be allowed to do that. That would require some research, but I don't see how we would be able to do that.
Yeah, we need to research that for sure.
Yeah.
I've considered even, do we implement a VRBO committee or code specific? I know Jamie has her hands full with all of the codes, but even just a codes person specific to the VRBOs, where the resident can reach right out to that person. And I would say I would be willing to volunteer to do it, but I'm working still, so I don't have time to
Melody,
do that.
that's a good suggestion, but I believe that needs to be a professional that's trained in that area,
Yes.
that knows the state statutes as
Right.
well as our ordinances.
And that is Jamie.
Yeah.
That's Jamie's, that's one of her, in
And
the
so
small.
to have a committee,
Yeah.
I would not see that happening.
Okay.
One of the things, because Fairway is so small, literally every city, all 24 of our employees wear multiple hats. So, one of Jamie's hats is enforcing the code in terms of Airbnb. She also relies, though, on the police department for their assistance in that as well. So it's, I think we have all of the systems that we need to have in place are in place. It's just a matter of, when a disturbance arises, let us know.
Okay.
And we will, I think, like I
Or
said.
not
hopefully-
even a disturbance. If something looks strange,
Yeah.
Yeah.
call.
And the rules that apply to short-term rentals, it's a dynamic situation. I mean, we didn't set the rules at one point, and they're never going to change.
Right.
So your comment, what I heard from you, your comment on number of vehicles, I think that's something we could potentially have a discussion about that we may not have thought about it that way originally.
And I would add that if we could proactively hit every short-term rental owner with exactly whether they're in violation or not, or we've ever had an issue with them, a subtle reminder wouldn't hurt, regardless of.
We do that regularly.
Okay.
Yeah. So because they have to register, all of the restrictions that apply to them get communicated to them on an annual basis.
What does the city get out of the allowing short-term rentals? We're not making money. We get a licensing fee that the person has to.
We get a licensing fee, and then Airbnb, for Airbnb at least, and I'd have to check on the others. Sales tax is added onto the short-term rental rate. So some cities who have hotels and other transient facilities have the transient guest tax. We don't have that because we don't have any hotels. So there would be an extra percentage that would be for Merriam, for example, if they have a transient guest tax, that would also be applied to Airbnbs. We don't have that, so it's just the sales tax for the cost of the rental itself, and then Airbnb remits that back to the city of Fairway.
You might add that to the list of possible enhancements to the existing regulations like the car limitation. And I don't know if this is an appropriate topic for one of our constant contacts to educate the neighbors, because it really is an enforcement issue. We do have pretty strict rules, but and it's often probably a timing issue, because Jamie, you don't work 24/7, I don't think, so it's going to fall to Lieutenant Bayless and the police department. But you know, if it's a weekend thing or an evening thing and there are too many people there, our residents should be informed on what the proper who do they call, so someone can go see if there is a violation there. But the enforcement is challenging, but we do have the mechanism. As long as the Jamie or the police get called, they can go see if there's a violation.
The minute that they realized that I'm out there taking pictures, they started spreading the cars down Catalina, so that, you know, by the time the police officer came, they weren't blocking the street. So, yeah, it's a timing issue.
Maybe you don't want to give it away that you're going to be calling the police.
You would think that they would have learned from the last time that I was out there that they wouldn't come back, but
Well,
they did.
no, see, they recognized you.
They know me.
Thank you, Melody. We will continue to look at that issue. I fortunate that I don't have any on my block, because my streets are the same narrow streets that you have, and that would be very disruptive, much less the disruption and the blackout of the windows, and it's kind of scary. But we will keep that front and center. Is there anyone else for public comment? Okay, we'll close public comment, and I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Yeah, we're adjourned. Good night, everyone. Thank you for your input.